Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and another army roster was revealed. This is going to be the Dwarves. So they started off by just overviewing the playstyle. They say it's characterized by stability, dependability, and defensive playstyle. So they say all of this is obviously in keeping with the lore. You have an army essentially with lots of guns in it, and an elite line that kind of holds fast while you blast away at the enemy force. Although you are susceptible to other ranged units and flanking attacks, so they say to be wary of that. On the campaign map, they say the dwarves are they have a lot of unswerving loyalty, which basically correlates to extremely high public order and essentially no chance of rebellions within dwarven regions. No domestic threats like that seems ridiculously crazy. So if you want an easy campaign, I mean, it seems like very much it's going to be the dwarves. You sit there, you're tanky, you just let the enemy come to you, walk into your lines of fire. Same thing on the campaign map. You kind of sit there with high public order. So I really, really hope that there is something else to make the dwarves very, very difficult to play. I hope that there's some sort of X factor. I hope that not only do they stay very disjointed right from the start, but that, you know, once you get rolling as the dwarves, it's not, you know, the end all be all of that faction. Next, we go into the legendary lords. So High King Thorgrim Grudgebearer, we already know about this. So he has what's called the Age of Retribution, which basically makes it so he can more readily recruit dwarven warriors of all types. So he gets a general buff towards that. We've seen him before. You can upgrade him. His mount, which is the only mount that you get for all the dwarves, is going to be the Dwarven High King's chair, where he gets kind of moved around in his royal chair. We saw it in the previous video. Now the second legendary lord is going to be Ungrim Ironfist. He is the Slayer King, pictured on the right there. Now his faction-wide trait is going to be Oathbound, and rather than having kind of a universal buff towards recruitment, what he does actually is it gives you a more ready stream of slayers who will want to join your forces, so they're easier to recruit and maintain. So that makes for a very interesting army built and composed around a slayer contingent. The lords, they just say one lord, he's melee. And then heroes, you get a master engineer and a thane, which is going to be melee. They didn't mention, however, the rune priests or master rune smiths, stuff like that. I was hoping to see people who could maybe tinker with your engineer and do more buffs in that capacity. So hoping to see more of that represented. We're going to see in the future that they don't really bring too much of the dwarven runes to the forefront, which I was anticipating they would have. Obviously the dwarves don't have magic, but what they do have in its stead is going to be sort of runes, which allows you to buff, debuff, and counter magic. In terms of the melee infantry, dwarf warriors with the extension of great weapons if you want them, hammers, ironbreakers, longbeards with great weapons, miners with blasting charges, and slayers. So this is all pretty much stuff we've seen before. I just think we haven't seen the hammerers in gameplay yet, but it's a pretty good fleshed out roster, sort of, except when you recall that the dwarves don't really have any cavalry, and so they kind of are melee infantry focused. So compared to the Empire, you know, it's not that much, but you would expect that the dwarves have a lot of infantry. Speaking of infantry, missile infantry, they're going to have Quarrelers with great axes, Thunderers, Iron Drakes, and Iron Drakes with Troll Hammer torpedoes. I have not heard of those Troll Hammer torpedoes. I haven't seen them in action. I'm really eager to see how that works, because already the Iron Drakes are super powerful. The torpedoes must be for even, you know, more heavy hitting capacity. So I'd be excited to see some of that. Yeah, missile infantry. I was hoping to see something extremely high tier, like a ranger unit, something like that, a little bit more variety in that sense. In terms of vehicles, they have the gyrocopter with the steam gun, gyrocopter with the brimstone gun, and then artillery, you have the cannon, flame cannon, grudge thrower, and organ gun. So all this has been previously seen, not too many surprises. I think overall it's pretty good, with some notable exceptions of nothing having to do with runes. You don't even have the Anvil of Doom being announced here. And anytime I see a gap in the roster from what you would expect from the tabletop, it always kind of leaves me with an uneasy feeling that they left it out and that it's going to make its way back in the form of DLC. So that is my worry. The dwarves do feel rather fleshed out, and I'm not sure if that's because just, you know, when they announced the Empire, I was super underwhelmed with the Empire. I'm not sure if that's, well, it was underwhelming because they missed out on a lot. It may have also been because we've played with humans for so long that we're very, quick to say, oh, this is nothing new. The dwarves don't necessarily have too many new units, but already they're different from the typical humans, so perhaps there's that essential bias. Another one of my big concerns is just how kind of tanky and slow moving and defensive the dwarves are going to be, and it's hard because that's what that faction is supposed to represent in the lore. And so I really hope that CA finds a way to make it so that the dwarves aren't so cozy up in their mountains, makes it hard, and makes it so that you don't necessarily get to, there's not a turning point where all of a sudden you're able to unite enough dwarves to the point where you have a defensible, almost like a Maginot line, and no one can attack you, and you just kind of sit there, and you have no incentives to move outside of the mountains, which kind of moves me to the next point, which is the fact that they've said that not all armies can conquer other cities and take them over. I presume the dwarves are going to have massive penalties when they move out of the mountains. I know, for instance, that the Empire can't take over Greenskin holds, so I assume the dwarves can't take over Greenskin holds either. And I don't think the dwarves will necessarily take over Empire cities. They would have to raise them and start them from scratch. And I don't know if you can build a Karak down in the lowlands like that. So what I'm worried about is the dwarves being super limited in the fact that you're only really going to be in the mountains. You're going to be super defensive, and it'll be a very slow-paced game. Yes, maybe the world is crumbling around you. Maybe that's how the dwarves are supposed to play, but that is kind of one of my fears, and I really hope they incentivize them to move past the mountains. Perhaps some grudges, or maybe they have some incentive to go explore the world. Maybe something to do with resources or other Karaks. Kind of traveling from mountain to mountain, spreading around the world through almost this network of mountains and making their home like these islands, which will be the mountains amongst the old world. But anyways, that's about it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. See you in the next one. Peace out.